I don't do it every day because if I have anything out of the office, yeah, if I get an Uber ride, then it makes it unaffordable.
Right.
You said no.
Total pay, yeah.
So I have to try and do what I'm doing tonight.
The number
Not gonna go out of the office.
Right, right.
And that.
I'm
All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started at 9:31. I will call the Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. If you would like to take roll.
Happy Lahane.
Here.
Paul Agnello is online. Jamie Jackson is online. Osama Min.
Here.
Kathy Coffey. Here. Adam Derrick.
Here.
Melody Fowler. Amy Garbarini is online. Kate Gibson. Here. Christine Hoffner. Leon Hughes. Cassie Lord
She's here.
is here. Yeah. Daniel Koenig. Chris Clark is online for King George County. Stephen Miner. Nick Ruiz.
Here.
Bob Agnello, Bob Schneider is online. Rodney White is online. Capella Akbari, Lee Anderson, Mohammed Bin Omar, Chelsea Baytos, Kimberly Cook, Mike Craig. Brian Council, Shannon Finnell is just joining us online. Shannon, I just called your name. Susan Gardner. Here. Todd Horsley, Jacob Paswick, Craig Pennington is online, Craig Reed, and Joe Stainsby. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the April 1st, 2024 TAC agenda. Do I have a motion?
Do we have a quorum? Or
Yes.
we do? Okay.
I think if I recall, the rule is 6 minimum and 2 jurisdictions minimum. And in this room, I think we have 2 jurisdictions and we have 6. Am I right about that?
Yeah.
Six members with at least 2
Six
of
members
the 3 FAMPO jurisdictions.
Yep, we have 2 of the 3
So we
sample
have 2
jurisdictions.
jurisdictions.
An online
And I
count.
believe we have 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Susan,
6.
Cassie are members.
Kate.
3, yeah, so we
Yeah,
have 6
no, we're good.
and we have 2 jurisdictions.
Alright.
And the other jurisdiction is participating online, so.
All right, with regard to the agenda, I do have one proposed change under item 7, moving items B and C up first, and then we'll do item A last. Anyone opposed to that?
I suspect that we can get through B and C very quickly.
Yeah.
And then that'll give you the time to discuss B and C, mate.
Okay.
I
All
believe
right,
we
do
formally
I have a
have,
motion with the proposed?
we have a motion, Bob Schneider.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
So
Alright, I have
this
a
is
second.
Paul. I just had kind of one question. So
Okay.
the comment that I had is, can we actually, for the Safe Streets for All, can we actually talk about the staff reports for that when we talk about kind of, I guess, the current item 7B? I don't have an issue with doing them up front, but it just seems like it'd make more sense to talk about all the Safe Streets for All information, like all like in the same agenda item.
Anyone opposed to that?
That's 9, item 9 he wants to add in.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, wait, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, move on to item number 4, review of the March 18th, 2024 policy committee meeting.
Kylie, if you can just pull up the agenda for the policy committee. There we go. So we had the public hearings for the TIP amendments and the draft SS4A action plan, which you've got on your agenda today. There were 2 TIP amendments, both were approved. No, down under consent agenda. Next item. Small scale pre-applications, we got unanimous approval for that. We had a river crossing presentation on the alternatives that they were going to present a day or 2 days later at the public meeting. So the public meeting took place and the same information was presented there. And the information has also been presented at the stakeholder group. We've got slides available. If any TAC members didn't attend any of those 3 events, we can provide you with the slides as well. But I think almost all TAC members have attended one of those 3, so you should all know that. The Vision 2075 update was approved with 1 small amendment and some rude comments about my South African spelling, but that was approved. So we now have the goals and objectives approved. Future of transit, we had Jamie Jackson and Bob Schneider present the current status of both operations of transit in our region, future plans, some cost issues, their current ridership estimates, and all of that. So those were quite, I would say, good presentations. People appreciated them, and I think people were very happy with the information they received. Just scroll down, please. Just those were all just reminders. And the grant application stuff, which you're going to talk about today. Then there was a closed session. Once a year, the policy committee does a performance appraisal for the FAMPO administrator, whoever that is. And then they do that in a closed session. They have a discussion about that staff matter. So that was done. I think those are the only items on the agenda, Mr. Chair. If anybody has questions, I'll happily answer them. But I don't like to waste a lot of time.
All right, anybody have any further questions? All right, moving on to public comment. Comments and questions from members of the public are welcome at this time, and staff will also read out comments submitted by the public prior to the meeting. Anybody in the room who wishes to make a public comment? Minutes.
I'm Alan Watkins, 12 England Run Lane in Fredericksburg, Virginia. This was one of the slides done by Michael Baker International. And at the meeting that was held on the 28th, during the discussion, regarding the potential new developments in the Bridge and Parkway region, a participant from the city of Fredericksburg indicated that a section of planned new growth was not on the pictured map. He indicated that just south of the Rappahannock RP region, which would be right down at the very bottom, that there was another development that was not displayed there. If that's the case, this would identify that every single parcel of land that's adjacent to the Gordon Shelton Boulevard has some planned development, which could potentially impact the location of the Bridge and Parkway, or at very least limit the choices that would be available. So I have a few questions. Questions number 1, can the details and the status of each and every potential new development, both north and south of the river, including the plans and the timeline, be made available to Michael Baker International and to the FAMPO committees, thus providing transparency to the public and to the county and city leaders who will ultimately make decisions regarding the project? Question number 2, can FAMPO identify the impact that these new developments could have on the existing 4 options that were identified by Micro Baker International? And the third question, would it be prudent for the county and city leaders to investigate possibly putting a moratorium on any planned new development in the region that's being analyzed by Micro Baker International until such time that the final options for the Bridge and Parkway have been studied and presented? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other further public comments in the room? If not, I believe we have one that needs to be read out.
Yes. From Greg Goldstein, he states, I would like to ask the technical committee if they are aware of the Stafford County proposal to allow Buc-ee's to build a 120 gas pump station and retail store on the corner of Austin Ridge Road and Courthouse Road in Stafford, adjacent to I-95 South. I'm against this proposal as I believe if authorized would significantly impact an already traffic-prone area. The infrastructure costs to support tens of thousands of cars a week. The potential environmental impact, crime and safety include significant increases of risk to pedestrians and bicyclists. Has the technical committee completed studies on the impact of the Buc-ee's proposal? If so, could I obtain information of the cost requirements and potential outcomes of this project? Thank you for your time, as this proposal would be a significant strain to our already overburdened infrastructure. Gregory Goldstein, a Stafford County resident. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, I will close the public comment period and we will move on to the consent agenda, item number 6. There's 2 items on the consent agenda: approval of the March 4th, 2024 TAC meeting minutes and resolution 2426 for a tip amendment. Any further comments or questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
A motion to approve?
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, with that, we'll move on to item number 7. Reminder, we moved item B and C up to start first. So we'll start with item 7B, resolution 2429, the Juniper C Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan.
Yes, Mr. Chair and members of the TAC, this is the resolution to adopt the GWRC Safe Streets and Roads for All resolution. It has been presented to the GWRC Executive Committee, and we propose to take this to both the FAMPO Policy Committee and GWRC in April for adoption at their April meetings. The resolution for adoption endorses the targets now in the state's strategic highway safety plan of reducing fatalities and serious injuries by 50% by 2045. It also includes realistic and achievable goals, including establishment of an ongoing stakeholder group. And item number 1 in the resolve does include the recommendation of consideration of funding applications in the future by local governments for jurisdictional and regional implementation of the recommended improvements. That concludes my presentation on resolution 2429.
Now, there was an email that was sent out earlier this morning with regards to attachments. Is that related to this item?
The Friday and then some bounced back this morning. We sent the final action plan that includes the public participation element. That which was attached to the TAC agenda last Wednesday lacked that item. And so Friday, we sent it as a PDF and link. A few of those emails, the PDF was too large. So it was resent this morning with the link only with the final action plan attached.
Okay, so the only difference is the public comment.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, thank you. Ian?
Yes, so you've actually seen the report since we sent out the general agenda. The only thing you didn't see was the public comment report, which was added after the public comment closed, because we're working on a very tight timeline, because the implementation grant and supplemental action plan grants NOFO deadline is coming up very quickly. So we couldn't delay this until the next TAC meeting. So that's why you're getting these things that way. All we did was took the thing you got on your TAC agenda and added the public comment, as Matthew said. That's all that it is different to what you've got. And we sent it out on Friday and we resent it this morning. So what, if you got it on Friday, ignore this morning's email. It's just a duplicate of what we sent on Friday in case some people didn't get it because it bounced. Final comment from me, as Becky said, I just want to emphasize it. We're required to have a stakeholder committee in the future to monitor implementation. So basically, I mean, we could make our lives very easy if we turn a future TAC meeting once a year into the implementation committee and just invite some of the emergency services folks to attend that once a year. That would be a very simple solution. But just reminding you that the requirement is that we have some stakeholder committee to monitor implementation of any of these projects. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. All right, so this is representative of the final general, everything that's been discussed at the stakeholder group and the emails back and forth, essentially.
Yes.
So we need a resolution for endorsement, which we'll take to the policy committee, and then Paul had suggested that you then do staff report 9 on the implementation and further supplement grant straight after, so that it grouped together.
All right, any further discussion on this item? All right, with that, do I have a motion for approval?
On motion to approve?
Do I have a second? Second. Any further discussion? All right, with that, all those in favor say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to item 7C, or sorry, we'll move on to item, what was it, 9, the first item, supplemental planning grant implementation grant projects.
I'll go ahead and get started. We have some slides for you today that provide the first the webinar award criteria we received in March. We do have 2 applications under consideration by the localities of Spotsylvania and Caroline County, and then the next steps. Next slide. It's important, we learned in the webinars in March that any supplemental planning grant application and implementation grant have a demonstrated safety problem. Next slide, please. The award criteria for implementation grants, 2 key words here: need to be in a rural area, need to have a high ratio of killed and serious injuries. The award criteria will be based on fatalities eliminated per $1 million of federal funding request. And also on this slide, the target of about $10 million of federal funding requests for implementation grants is a good target to achieve and not try to exceed. The actual NOFO says implementation grants between 2.5 and 10 million. And so we're working together, you'll see later on, with one county to try to hit that mark as close as we can. Next slide. These are ineligible projects and strategies, and just have them listed here. This is straight from the webinar. Next slide, please. Caroline County is very serious about and did give us this application or idea for a supplemental planning grant that our consultant is currently working on. This is a high injury location on US Route 1 at Page and Mary Road. It's near the Spotsylvania County line. And they are, from the pipeline study, working currently on adding an additional northbound and southbound left turn lane on US 1. This proposal would study that proposal from a crash safety standpoint, as well as look at modeling and 2 other options for that intersection, including turning lanes and a new traffic signal, and then a US 1 R cut. Spotsylvania County has keyed in on this location to consider a companion project for Arcadia US 1, and immediately to the west of the Caroline intersection is Arcadia Mary. And Arcadia currently comes in at a hard skew on Route 1. It's a high crash location for people trying to make a left onto northbound Route 1, particularly in the mornings. So, they're considering, and again, these two are at a staff level. We're going to get proposals from VHB for what this engineering would cost. We will then look at our own internal administration costs on top of that and provide the cost back for the localities to consider once we load those two costs together. Next slide. This is the implementation grant of Spotsylvania County. We have, I'm sorry, the supplemental planning grant of Spotsylvania County. They're gonna come up with roads in the county. And once they identify those miles of roads and road locations, they will have the consultant give a price for identifying high crash locations, review of intersections, vertical and horizontal curves that are not up to design functional classification standards, and most importantly, video both directions of the roadway so that they can be studied in the office for consideration of order of magnitude cost for low-cost countermeasures, as we've just done with our SS4A priority corridors for you. And then also look at and do cost estimates at a set number of locations for spot improvements where the horizontal curvature geometry is not up to speed, and for intersections. They will also look at the three rural high crash roads that were priority corridors and develop project costs for a future consideration for crash reduction benefit values of creating a forgiving roadside. What's a forgiving roadside? This is a view of Pontchartrain Road in Hanover County in 2021. And you notice in this view, you have what's called recoverable side slopes. If a car leaves the roadway, it can recover, and the farmer and property owner can mow safely the slopes to maintain that clear zone. And then next slide. This is the same view in 2007 of this same road. And I think this looks very similar to what those three roads look like today. So that's their supplemental grant. Next slide. These are the implementation grants that Spotsylvania County is now working very closely with VDOT residency on what, as far as, I'm sorry, the first one, Andor Old Plank, which is the highest crash intersection in the GWRC safety transportation plan. And so they're looking at funding the remainder of the project with their implementation grant application. The close work with VDOT is being undertaken with Robert E. Lee, River, Brock, and Orange Plank. These are 4 roads that have high fatality numbers and are coming due in VDOT's paving schedule for time for resurfacing. So they're looking at, most importantly, the shoulder hardening, or what's called a trench widening, that which can be achieved between the existing edge of pavement and top of ditch, no utility relocation, no widening, no right-of-way acquisition. Then they're working with VDOT residency on what is allowable on these roads from VDOT's perspective to up the safety more. On an earlier slide, we saw that resurfacing of the pavement is considering maintenance of state of good repair. So Spotsylvania County if there are items like the pavement overlay not eligible for SS4A, they'll look at funding that 100% themselves. So best part of this is VDOT residency, Spotsylvania County are working together. It may be, for example, that the raised reflective pavement markers aren't allowed on the secondary road. It would set a precedent and be a maintenance concern for VDOT in the future. So that's why that partnership with VDOT and the residency is necessary. It's also very probable and possible that this shoulder hardening won't be able to be done until the next bid cycle of their paving schedule. You do have 5 years from the time you're awarded the project to finish them. And so VDOT will look at inflation to probably put it in next spring's bid paving schedule, because they've already awarded that, which is going to be done this upcoming summer season. Next slide, and final slide. Well, we all knew that the deadline to get projects to us was March 15th. We are hoping, aiming for April 12th, that's Friday of next week, to give those costs back to localities that will be from our consultants and VDOT, and then include our own administrative costs on top of that. April 15th, we hope FAMPO will adopt the plan. And then the actual deadline, last day to do the combined grant is May 16th. So we're hoping by May 10th to beat that deadline so we don't find at the last minute. That concludes my presentation on that staff.
All right, so question, Becky, I know we discussed a few Stafford projects and you asked me to go get additional details from VDOT on those. So just wondering about the status of what, I didn't say anything on the slides about that.
My direction to you was to look at the safety action plan that we have, find fatalities, and find roads that were upcoming on VDOT's paving schedule. And that is where I left it to get that from you.
Yep, so we're working, VDOT went and sent me a list of additional details for the cost estimates late last week, so
Great,
I'll up later this week on that.
that'd be great.
So we'll add them in as soon as we get them.
Yep.
Hey, I had just a one comment. Going back to, I believe it's slide 7. Or I'm sorry, slide 6. Yeah, the one comment was basically VDOT had done a Route 1 corridor study for basically all the way down to the Caroline County line. It was done a couple years ago. But for the Arcadia intersection with Route 1, one of the options was a realignment of the intersection, which could be combined with other things, but have it not skewed so much. So can that be included in the analysis that I guess the consultant is costing out?
Well, Paul, that would require a full take of a structure up there. Why don't we talk offline about that? This option of an R cut and then closure of different legs is achievable within the existing right of way. I don't know that I can help defend that kind of an impact. Let's go ahead and look at the camera. I don't think that would be an impact for safety. No, I don't think that'd be a good supplemental action plan scope because it's not due to safety. It's just trying to improve the geometry. And it also moves that intersection closer to Page. So what we were talking about with an R cut at Arcadia and down at Page, you'd have a super street. That one cut between Arcadia and Page would be where both R cuts would make it. So no, sir, I don't think a realignment to go through that old building there just to make it a 90-degree is a safety thing that we can justify, particularly at this short time frame.
Yeah, let's talk more offline. I said just the realignment, it wasn't like completely redoing the road. It just was trying to have it tee in more to Route 1.
Let's talk offline and make sure it's for safety, not for just improving the geometry. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
All right,
Mr. Chair,
yep, one question.
can you go to the slide with the timeline, please? Well, first off, great work by you all on starting this process, developing the plan. It is excellent work and getting us to this very tight timeline. So just for clarity, the projects that we're seeing that are listed out are for this timeline right here, which is very aggressive. Is that correct? Becky, what does our next grant application schedule look like? Is it next year? Just so we can start preparing what we need to do for that next round.
Right, what we found between the 2023 NOFO and the 2024 Notice of Funding Opportunity, when we applied last year, we had till July. Our consultant warned us, hey, that deadline keeps moving shorter and shorter. So it went from July to May, okay? So very likely, it won't be May next year. It may well be January, and you won't know till the NOFO comes out.
We should be starting to prepare for suspicious area. There was one bullet on the slide about review criteria for prioritizing rural areas. You know, we don't have much rural in the city left. The projects that were identified here that are of specific interest to us are, and Paul and sponsoring folks might relevant to you all too. Dixon Street, right? We had a pedestrian killed there last year. We want lighting along that corridor. I very much imagine us trying to get a project application together for the next round there. Is that rural area going to be an issue for us, or are we still, what do you think about the chances of that type of application?
Well, the 2024 notice of funding opportunity, it made a really big deal that prior supplemental planning grant activities were under requested. It also said very clearly that in the United States of America, they will award a total of 50 implementation grants for the country. And they have to be, and just as a hint, rural, near nudging 10 million and where people are killed. Now, supplemental, all day long, you can get the engineering analysis, crash reduction benefit of your safety idea. You can, all time, it was almost like supplemental planning. We have so much money, plan away, you know, plan big.
Engineering.
Cost estimates and that kind of thing. So that's the wise thing to do, is to really expand for safety. It does have to be a safety problem.
Okay.
And that's a safety problem justified with the activities there. It also said this, the crash is to be considered when staff does the work to do the crash reduction part of this grant application. You must use crashes between 2017 and 2021, because those are the fatality rates that are nationally available. So if the pedestrian fatality occurred outside that window, yeah, okay. So it wouldn't show up, but they're saying as far as planning, particularly for urban areas, plan away, do those engineering analyses, do the crash reduction, and that way it may not be implementation IIJA, but you'll be ready for smart scale or other funding opportunities.
And I'll add, like, one of the things Stafford's applying for our own action plan grant, but one of the things we're doing through that is gonna get a bunch of safety projects to like 10 or 15% engineering. So that we can get that 1 point further. So we're probably not applying for all that safety trial, but for smart scale, that's our goal.
So Becky will have to try not modalize me from that side of the room, but I mean, if there's just one project, why don't you get it in now? As a supplemental grant project, just one project.
Yeah, let us think about that.
Don't come at us with 7 or 10 projects. Becky will just throw a rock at me and we won't be able to do it. But it
sounds very simple, me saying that one thing in my mind here.
If you beg and plead nicely with Becky over there, we might just be able to squeak it in now, but you gotta hurry, right?
Right.
You saw that timeline we didn't create, the federal department created, and we're just trying to get everything we can for our region in, because the turnaround on implementation is so quick. You don't have to wait like smart scale 7 years to get every little thing done.
It's immediately.
You can implement very quickly. So you can get this for your residents like next year, right? The pylons will go up and the lights will be installed. There's no long delay for this program. But it has to be safety, and it has to have crashes or deaths and all that.
One question, Becky, when we speak of serious injuries, obviously fatality, we're looking at K crashes, serious injuries, we're looking at just A crashes. Got it.
It does say, as far as once you find your KA in the training, is like, we'll go ahead and grab B. That's the suspected injury to bolster the number.
So we are doing B as well?
I will what you need to do to find your big boys with VDOT is look at KA.
Okay, yeah, that was a.
Yeah,
Yep.
what
that
I'll
worked
do,
then.
what I'll do
Not
when
all.
I try to sell it, I'm gonna go ahead and grab B, okay?
All right, with that, we'll move on to item 7C, resolution 2431, public comment period for the UPWP.
Yeah, a number of, this sounds idiotic, but a number of the numbers in this draft will change. There's no way getting around it. We're on C, yes, the UPWP. We've got a draft for you, but a number of the dollar values in there are not final. For example, the DRPT number, they've accepted by the looks of it, the methodology that Vampo proposed, but they've applied it to last year's figures because they don't have written confirmation of their allocation for this year. So it's a bit of a messy process. I can't help that.
So,
But
Ian,
because we're required to put this out for public comment, what I'm asking the TAC to do is to allow me to put this out for public comment and to then bring it back to you next month with the corrected, revised, updated dollar values so that you're not approving the content finally today. We're just asking you to let me put it out for public comment because it's a requirement that the UPWP has to go out for public comment. So there may be changes to these dollar values and even one of the dollar items you may want to discuss because it connects to CMAC and STGB today. It's just permission for me to put this out for public comment. It's not approval for the content.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So with that said, do I have a motion for resolution 2431?
So this is Paul. I just had a question on the Safe Streets for All basically grant. Like I was looking like there's nothing assumed for FY25. Like, should there be a placeholder in there basically for the grant? Like when this becomes kind of the final version of this? I understand like it's not final today.
So I believe we have language in there, but I can't put the dollar values in because I have no idea yet what the dollar values are. So there's language in there as a placeholder, but I've left out, I put the dollars at 0 with a comment that to be, there's a footnote which says to be verified or something.
All right, with that, do we have a motion to approve resolution 2431?
Motion to approve.
All right, second, and we have a second from Nick. All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. With that, we'll move back to item 7A, CMAC STBG project allocations. So there are several items on this portion of the agenda, items 1 through 4. Since the last TAC, there have been several proposals for some minor changes to how allocations are potentially done. And then after we discuss those 3 items, John will jump into the presentation for the scenarios that FAMPO staff have come up with. The first item's my item. So as some of you are aware, Stafford receives MPO TAP funding for North Stafford. And with that, there's funding kind of sitting in the bank right now that we can allocate to a project. One of those projects is the Staffordboro Boulevard sidewalk project. And it has about, I think, $600,000 in CMAC and CR funding right now. So what Stafford is requesting from TAC is that we will add the MPO TAP funding onto that project, some of it, and then the CMAC and CR funding go on to one of Stafford's other sidewalk projects. The methodology currently states that if there's a surplus in funding, it goes back into the pot. But we would like to request that the funding goes on to one of Stafford's other sidewalk projects so we can get started on another sidewalk project.
And which project do you want it to go on?
So they would be going to 2 projects. One would be the Mine Road and Green Spring Drive sidewalk project, as well as the Kings Highway and Chatham Heights sidewalk and shared use path project as well. We'd get enough funding to start engineering on both those projects and be able to get hopefully to about 20 or 30% engineering by the next round of TAP next year.
Just, John, which of those projects currently already scored in and already have funding on? And is any one of those not currently scored in or not have funding on?
So currently, neither of the projects are in the current the Minor Road, Green Springs, sidewalk project will score in with STBG funds because they are the eligible applicant in that category. And then the Kings Highway, Chatham, that project did not score in any of the categories. It was missing.
So the comment from us in terms of the methodology, and we frankly, I was just telling Kathy Coffey this morning that I'm so over CMAC and SDGD. Frankly, I wish you would all just throw the money on the table and pick some money and let me out, leave me out of it.
That's what I'm trying to do.
It's so frustrating for us as staff because we have to play the arbiter. My only concern about this whole thing in terms of methodology is just one item, and that's that last project. It has not scored well. Because of that, it's not likely to receive funding this round. So, in the past, and you all who've been here longer than me will bear this out, we've allowed jurisdictions to move funding from one of their projects to another one of their projects, right? We've done this multiple times. I have no problem with doing that. My concern is that this is not a project that's in the CMAC STGB list. So you're actually awarding additional money to a Stafford project that would not be getting money. Just need to understand that it's not the usual thing that we do. So the first of the projects is going to be awarded STGB money.
Yes.
So that one I'm not worried about because what would happen anyway is after it gets that money, we would allow the county to move money on and off of that project. We don't encourage it, but every year somebody's got a difficult project that's delayed or brought forward and they ask us to do that. I don't have a problem with that. My concern is with that second project. It's not in the CMAC list. So you're actually awarding money to a project that's not in the list. You just need to understand what you're doing. And the reason the reason I say it is because it opens the door by creating a new precedent, and then every jurisdiction comes back next year and says, oh, my project scored stone last, but if we switch all this money around, I can take some CMAC money and put it on that project. So just our role as staff of FAMPO is fairness. Our role is not to tell you what to do with your projects. You do whatever the heck you want with your projects. But our role is to just ensure fairness. So when you open the door another crack, remember everybody else was going to be able to do that, and eventually it could end up in a fight where you're all wanting to fund your bad scoring projects by fiddling the system. So just understand the total picture here before you make up your mind. I have no problem with the first move because it's a project that would score in. So it's going to end up on the CMAC list.
And it's eligible for TAC funding through the same project.
And it's eligible. So the first one I'm not too worried about. I'm sort of okay with that. It's the second one that concerns me. It's going to open the door to a new level of fiddling. And I just want you all to be treated equally in future. That's my only concern. Once we do that, and we would obviously have to get TAC approval, and then we'd have to get the policy committee approval to do something new that we've not done before.
And there's one more implication is that if we award funding to a project that hasn't scored well, is scored in the next rounds, it will actually receive a scoring bump, a 10-point or a 5-point bump that it would not already receive. So it will actually have the advantage on future round projects.
And I'll add as well, with regards to the TAP funding that we're looking to add to Stafford Boulevard, if this is not approved by the TAC to split the funding between the two mentioned sidewalk projects, all the TAP funding will just go to the Minor Road and Green Spring project. So there wouldn't be any surplus funding for the TAC to use if it were not to be approved.
It's a more complicated thing to do. I hope everybody understands the proposal.
So this is Paul. So I think like if something like this is being proposed, basically TAC really needs to kind of see exactly what basically the transfers are that are being proposed. It's hard like just kind of hearing it to kind of completely understand what is being proposed. But just based on the discussion, I would kind of have similar concerns to what Ian just said, that we shouldn't create a situation where a project basically doesn't get selected in the approved methodology for CMAC or STBG, and then we try to basically transfer money to it in some other way that isn't part of the current methodology, that seems like a slippery slope that would create issues later on.
Yeah, so Paul, I'll say with regards to the transfer onto the project that's not currently on the CMAQ SCBG list, it'll be about $450,000 that gets transferred from Stafford Borough and CMAQ funding, I believe, onto the project.
So it's money that Stafford already has allocated to a project?
Yes.
But anyway, just that's the one thing to bear in mind, that it's a new thing, that last step. The other steps I can live with, frankly, because I don't actually care. I just care about fairness, really. I can live with those other steps. It's that last step that makes me a little nervous, because I can just see you're all trying to get the best deal for your localities, and I can see you all coming back next year wanting to do that on a bunch of projects, and then like somewhere we got to stop it. I don't know where the line is, but eventually. So that's my thing. Paul, are you proposing that we get a full kind of spreadsheet showing all those moves for next TAC meeting? Is that what you were hinting at?
Well, that's what I would like to see, but I guess my question, just going back to kind of the discussion from a few minutes ago, is why not basically take the money at basically, if there's kind of a Stafford project which is clearly eligible, that's on the list, why not give all the money to that rather than try to give some of it to a new project that's not on the list?
So the purpose is to get started on engineering on 2 sidewalk projects rather than 1 sidewalk project. That would be able to get to the TAP round next year, hopefully at about 30% engineering, so that we'd have a much more defined cost estimate for TAP and be able to get started on those projects if we were to receive funding.
I mean, why don't you just use your local funding to start kind of PE?
We have local funding on several other projects right now, so the goal is obviously, as you all do as well, to get as much grant funding as possible to start work on the projects.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think if it's not allocated on the table, I would love to fight for you on this one, but I think it's gonna cause a lot of problems in the future in Hampton Roads unless it was on the table as far as in CMAQ STBG table, and not even in draft form. It actually had to be allocated funding before we would allow swaps. So that would be if there is slippery slope will go down, for me, it would be to allow funding to be swapped with a draft project, but I still think that is a concession I normally would not make, but I think it makes sense to move the ball forward. For the project that would not receive funding, I would not recommend that allocation. But that's my opinion.
All right, any further comments? Doesn't seem like there's support from the other 2 jurisdictions, so we will move on to item number 2, which is proposal regarding round 7 smart scope preparation. So as we discussed at the last TAC meeting, the proposal was to find a way to reallocate some STBG funding or allocate new STBG funding from FY30 and work out a way to move it up, so that for smart scope round 7, FAMPO and the jurisdictions would have some money to help with smart scale preparation for projects. So we discussed this a little bit last time. Just basically, there's a mini study needed or a cost estimate or a sketch needed. This money would go towards supporting that and hope to lessen some of the burden on VDOT that we have as such this year.
Just from a technical point of view, and then I'll shut up and you all can discuss this. First of all, I was accused in the policy committee of having an opinion. So my opinion is that what Matthew's trying to achieve, the goal, I think is the right goal, right? So that's my personal opinion. The goal is the right goal. How to get there is complicated, because the question is, which money do we use and when do we use it? In terms of the methodology, which we all wrote together last year, there is an item in the methodology which says that by November, if you want to do something like this unusual, you should notify staff before we start scoring projects so that it doesn't turn into a fight over project money. The proposal only came last TAC meeting, which is March.
We did discuss it last fall.
Okay, so the point is, there is a item in the methodology that allows for us to introduce in a particular year, an item that is a particular concern that particular year. So to have that sort of discussion is not out of the bounds of the policy. We can have that discussion. The question always comes then, where do we find the money to do that? We didn't this round get any new unexpected money, like the carbon reduction money we got last round, and some years we get HIP funding, which comes at us out of the blue. I just get a call from Susan saying, by the way, there's another $1 million of HIP funding, find a set of projects, right? We didn't have those things happen this round. So I don't know why. Those things are odd. Congress just decides on something and then you just get some money. We didn't this round, so there isn't some new money. So the question really is, if the TAC decides that they agree with Matthew's goal, and that's all your decision, we then have to find a way to fund it. So what you'll see in a moment when John gets to scenarios is he's provided scenarios for funding the first two projects in every category. That was the first thing he did. And we followed the methodology very strictly this time because we didn't want you all to come fight with us. So we just followed the methodology. And then we've shown at the bottom what funding still remains after we've funded the first two projects in every category. And then he's given you options A, B, and C as to what we might be able to do with that money. And you can all discuss that when he gets there. But I think I'm going to shut up now and let you all discuss the idea and whether you want to do this and whether we should be finding the money. And if we do look for the money, where we should get it. And if not, you know, and there are three ways you can fund smart scale projects, design and cost estimates on that. One is you can ask VDOT to do it for you. And there's the pipeline studies and there's VDOT's own technical support. The second thing you can do is that the localities can set aside a study to design their projects. The third thing you can do is you can use CMAQ and STGV money in some way to be able to do that. There is kind of a fourth way, but it takes longer, which is to get a federal state grant to do a study. But as you know, that's a long, complicated thing to get done. Anyway, so there are four ways you can do it. And one way is to use CMAQ and STGV money. So that's all I have to say.
Remind me again, did we decide on an off the top allocation for STBG when we finalized the methodology for studies?
Yes.
Okay, and how much was that for?
It's not a huge amount, John.
It's about $200,000.
200,000. So basically you get one good size study every round. Yeah.
It's not going to be a big study if you want.
Realistically, this round, it's $109,000 per study.
Yeah.
It's really quietly kind of fun too.
Okay.
but
Because I was gonna say if there was buy-in on potentially modifying that process, maybe you expand that amount a little bit. That would include, you know, your proposed smart scale projects for round 7, as well as maybe one FAMPO designated regional study that's not necessarily a smart scale.
A part of the problem is that the funding's in FY30, it's 6 years out. So it's doing studies 6 years from now, which doesn't get you very far in kind of the next.
Yeah, I guess you're right, because the smart scale money would be 132, right? So, yeah.
That's how we got in trouble with TAC members. We as staff got in trouble with TAC members last year, is when we proposed studies to prepare projects and then people felt we were spending too much money on studies. So we're not gonna promote that. You all promote it this time. You all decide what you want to do and we'll carry it out, right? We're not going to fight for any particular thing. We, on purpose, Panther staff submitted 0 requests for funding for studies this round. We're doing nothing. Whereas it's up to you guys to decide what to do.
one asterisk is that for projects, PE is included in the competitive process, and a few jurisdictions did submit just only for PE, and depending on which category, that is actually based on the funding and baked into methodology, depending on how you want to allocate.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you started that process now, let's say you did have in this next round, you had money for smart scale studies, it wouldn't be for round 7, it might be for round 11. But eventually, once you get there, you would have you'd have a well-conceived smart scale application, assuming smart scale is still around, 4 rounds from now.
And there is a method to moving
Yeah.
funding around on specifically some
Yeah.
Stafford projects that we can get it up to like FY 25.
Yeah.
I think someone online had a comment.
Like Paul.
Yeah, this, yes, so this is, Paul, so, a couple comments. One is, it seems like this is kind of a premature discussion to have, that we're kind of still on Smart Scale round 6. And it's not clear kind of what kind of the state resources for Smart Scale round 7 might be. They might be willing to do a lot of studies in the preparation for us, as they did for round 6. And I guess my concern is, if FANPO says, okay, we have a bunch of STBG money that can be used to develop projects, what that could lead the state to do is say, okay, well, FANPO will pay their own way. We'll take the resources that would have gone to FANPO and we'll basically put them towards the eastern part of the district or some other part of the state. So I would caution against that. The other thing is just with the bigger kind of broader picture of studies. I know we discussed this last fall. There wasn't support at that time of kind of expanding the amount of kind of STBG funding for studies in the process, but we would be open to having that discussion maybe this coming fiscal year about redoing maybe the percentage for studies, or maybe kind of changing the way that's done. But I think it should be broader and not just like kind of STBG money for Smart Scale. I think it should be STBG money for basically any kind of study.
Well, Paul, I think to part of that point, I'm not too worried about, the state taking away resources. Every district gets a certain amount of funding, and that's kind of is what it is. It's not necessarily a premature discussion at this point. One of our issues every round with Smart School, as everyone's been aware of this round, is we wait to the last minute and we get everything done the Monday everything's due. And we really need to find a way to stop doing that. So that's kind of why the discussion is happening now, because we are allocating funding. And that maybe this fall, we can get started on some of that work and doing some of that planning and preparation in advance, so that a year from this fall, next fall, we'll be in a place to say, VDOT's deadline was December 1st. We'll be in a place to say next fall, by that next December 1st, here's generally what we're looking at for projects. And we're not waiting until the last minute to get this stuff done, because that is just not a process that we should be doing every year. We need to be doing this a lot earlier.
Mr. Chair, quick question. Were you saying that this funding would be for Smart Scale only studies? It is for any.
It could be for any sort of project development for grant programs. One of the initial thoughts was Smart Scale round 7, yes, but I think that'll be a conversation we can have with the TAC about how we want to use some of the funding for project development.
Okay. So Paul, did you get that too, or does that have any impact on your decision or your thoughts? It's for any project, not just Smart Scale.
I'll just add, it could be for revenue sharing, it could be for HC,
TAP.
it could be for TAP, whatever, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, because it's not just for a study either. We could just do it for TAP, for instance. Maybe you just need to do a cost estimate in a sketch, right? So it's, yeah.
So we're open to having that discussion basically next fiscal year, maybe if we talk about some other changes with STBG and CMAC. But we don't think that this is kind of the right time to do that, because we don't
Well,
really.
Paul,
know
this is the
what
time that we are
situation
allocating
is.
funding.
Right, but basically the funding that we're allocating is not going to help for Smart Scale round 7. I mean,
Say that again?
like Nick said, it might help for Smart Scale round 9, 10, or 11. But basically,
Well, as I
the funding
mentioned,
available doesn't help with Smart Scale round 7.
as I mentioned to Nick when he brought up that same point, I think there's some methods to moving the funding around on some other projects that would not hurt the project schedule, that we can move it up to say FY 25.
And I guess the concern I have with that also goes back to the point that Ian made. We agreed on this methodology. And basically, if we put a whole bunch of money in studies, I mean, that's not what we originally agreed to.
I would say, just to add to that, if we agree to a methodology and then go through the process of submitting applications, scoring them, everybody submitted their applications based on the methodology that had been agreed to, right? So I think we need to carry through this round of allocations and wait until after that process to talk about changes. If we want to make changes that we can all agree on, let's do it. I think this is somewhat an iterative process. We learn each round some tweaks that we could make to benefit everybody. But I wouldn't feel good about changing it partway through an application.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any issue having the discussion. I don't have any disagreement with about changing it in between the process. I don't have any issue with that comment from the group. But I do think it takes us a year to talk about stuff, so now is probably time as opposed to next year when we'll talk about it the following year.
Perhaps,
And
But that's just
if
fine.
I can just comment on
Sir.
just one quick one and then I'll shut up. Just to remind you all, this is the only thing I'm saying, is that we are not gonna allocate money next year. Just
Oh, 'cause
remember,
it's the.
we are moving now to a every
Every other
second
year.
year cycle because smart scale is a heavy lift. This is a heavy lift for staff because we have to deal with all these fiddles,
Okay.
right? And scoring takes an age because it's a very complicated methodology now. So just remember, we can't come back to this this fall, for next year. There's no allocation next year. We're
You're
gonna
right.
park the money next year for 2 years and then make a bigger allocation of money 2 years from now. So just to clarify that fact.
and I was just gonna say, perhaps the discussion that we have is not necessarily whether or not studies, for round 7 smart scale, be funded in some particular way in this methodology, but the discussion on regionally prioritizing what the next round of smart scales projects would be. Agnostic of what their scores would be or how strong they might be candidates when they go in for the pre-application process, but just so that the whole region is on the same page like this fall, like you suggested. And then if one or more of those projects rise to the level where the jurisdictions feel strongly about them, but there isn't STBG money available or other money, then maybe that rises to your board's level. So we'll allocate some money to do this because we really want this to go into smart scale. Having those discussions at the end of 2024, so that by 2026 spring, you're ready to go with your pre-app. That seems like a much,
To make things, in terms of scheduling, you really need to have the funding and be ready to go and be starting at the end of this fall. By the end of 2024, at the latest, right? Because you're gonna need a year. Just because of timelines, because everything works with studies, with whatever it is, you're gonna need a considerable amount of time to get through that process. The Smart Skill is now such an extensive process, especially with the new readiness gates, that there's so much more planning work that's required for this.
but I agree with the comment that was made. I think we should let this one round of allocation play out before we start to fiddle with things, because like every meeting I
think
come to, you guys are
that,
talking about that. So.
As Ian mentioned and John has up, there's a few scenarios that may kind of work in the favor of not making too significant of a change to any existing allocations. So we've kind of exhausted that discussion, so we'll move on to item number 3. But I'm sure it'll come back up when we discuss the actual options. Paul, do you want to speak on this?
Sure, and it would be great if we could bring up basically the matrix, basically for scenario A, and just look at the very first page of that.
Option A. That one. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically the item in question, it's basically kind of row 4, the GW Ride Connect supports. I'm sorry, not 4, it's number 7. And if you can scroll a little bit to the right, please, that's good. So the issue is basically going into this year, GW Ride Connect had a healthy amount of funding for FY27, and then they have funding allocations beyond FY27, but they didn't have anything basically before FY27. And what we propose is basically kind of drawing down some of the 27 funding to basically kind of pull it forward so that it would basically go into FY25 and FY26, so that GW Ride Connect would have some CMAQ funding available. And the reason is, I understand why this is important to do, is DRPT has recently changed some of the criteria basically for what staff activities can be eligible for the DRPT grants. So basically, in the absence of some CMAQ funding, there are some activities that they won't be able to do. And I guess one of these I think I've heard of is basically counting the utilization at commuter lots, which is kind of a FAMPO region-wide activity, which we think does have value. What we would propose is basically not really increasing the GW Ride Connect total kind of allocation, because that would be kind of outside of the current methodology, but basically instead of doing the 119,633 for 27, about putting basically kind of 3 equal allocations of that for 25, 26, and 27, which would be $40,000 approximately for those 3 years. So then they would have an allocation that they could do some staff activities with that starting in FY25. And then basically beyond FY27, with the methodology, there is basically an allocation in CMAQ that could basically support them with these activities going forward. So that was what the proposal was. Happy to take any questions.
So just a question for FAMPO staff, is the proposal that's on the table fit within the current methodology?
So the proposal we've put there is not quite exactly what Paul's proposing. When Paul sent the email, I think we didn't quite fully understand what he was proposing. So we put 30,000 there, which was the initial request. And he's now updated us with information and is suggesting that we split that money. The money is already allocated in this particular case. So it's not asking for any more money. It's asking permission to move money to facilitate earlier use of the money. That's what it is. And that's Paul's recommendation. And the other activity that they can no longer fund with DRPT funds, I understand, and we've got them in the room, is to purchase any equipment such as computers. If a computer screen breaks, DRPT will not replace it. They have been told to get the money for other sources. So it's the park and ride lock counts and any computer equipment that they can't get any longer from DRPT. They used to be able to, now they can't. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. So there's nothing specifically in the methodology that says you can't move money around, and it does specify the allocation in dollar terms to GW Ride Connect, and that money was already allocated, so it's not any new allocations that is being proposed by or recommended by Spotsylvania.
Yeah, and in option A, the methodology requires that we spend down the balance entry for FY25. So there is CMAQ and STBG money that has to be programmed. So for at least with this FAMPO example is go ahead and provide $30,000 from the balance entry so that we can reassess in 2027. That's option, but we have to place that money somewhere.
And that fits within the methodology.
Yes. Excuse me a second. If I can just cheat a little bit and use this time to talk about this item here. You see the $4,622. When Paul notified us of his suggestion, I also asked for something, and I want to just be upfront about it. DRPT, if they follow the new allocations, which they haven't yet got, is going to reduce our 5303 funding for FY25 by $4,622 roughly. That's not a fast number. It could change because they told us that they're waiting for their final allocations. But I've asked that we could take from the, the emergency money we put in the balance entry for each year. It's not allocated to a project. We put it in the balance entry. And then when the year's up, we then allocate it to things because we didn't need it, right? If we need it one year, that's where we go for emergency money. So we didn't need it this year. And so I've asked that the shortfall in the DRPT funding, 5303 funding for this year, be made up out of that balance entry money that was kept for emergencies, which is in FY24, which we did not need. Therefore, it's got to be reallocated. It's not going to give us an increase in 5303 money for FY25. So it's not giving us like a 4% increase. What it's doing is just filling a little gap to make our 5303 funding for FAMPO administration square with last year. So we'll get then the same amount as last year instead of less than last year. I did that slide presentation last time, which showed all the reasons why we're getting reduced funding and more responsibilities. And this one would plug a hole without giving us an increase in 5303, which we're not going to get, but it prevents us getting a reduction in 5303 funding. And that's the kind of money we use to pay for the rent of our portion of the rent of the building, the equipment we use in the office, the computers, staff remuneration, printing and stationery, everything to run the operation. So I'm just being upfront about that. I've requested that 4,620 to be allocated from the balance entry emergency money, which we have to reallocate now anyway, but it's not allocated to a project. And I did it at the same time as Paul's suggestion that we have bring forward the allocation for GW Ride Connect. Does that make sense?
Without having to disrupt any other project.
Without having
So-
to disrupt projects.
What FAMPO staff have on the table, I think this is option A, is just taking money from the balance entry and removing it from an outer year. Does anyone have any issues with that? It seems like it fits within the current methodology, at least what's on the screen right now,
Sure, is it a funding swap? Is that what they're doing? Or, okay,
swapping years.
they're swapping years with what?
So for the GW Ride Connect thing,
Yes, sir, yes.
that first year, FY25, we can take it out of the emergency balance entry money, which we didn't use in FY24. So the money is available.
Okay.
For FY26, to meet Paul's proposal, we'd have to swap our guess, John.
I would have to pull whatever funding from 27 into 25, and because there's not another GWRC.
26.
Yeah, I would have to pull money forward in years.
Yeah, but where are you pulling it from?
Well, that's the key. I would have to find a project to donate money into outer
To-
years.
Okay, but you
So,
haven't selected
no,
that project
just-
yet.
No.
The main movement is from here to here, but so we would have to swap 1 year's money between these two on a project that currently has money.
I get.
You've put 30,000 in FY25 already from the balance entry. So to finish Paul's plan, there's zero money in FY26. And he's saying that we need to take from the 119, 45,000 and put it here. So to do that swap, usually a project doesn't die in a ditch over 45,000 in
You're right.
for
right.
1 year's delay. Because it's small money on a project that costs.
So Paul is not saying, Paul, you're not saying put $70,000 in FY25, you're saying, okay,
Yeah,
You're
so
saying
what
40
what I was proposing,
45.
Jamie, was to keep the total funding level the same for basically GW Ride Connect, and I'll just clarify that. But basically to pull kind of a third of that money from FY27 to put it in 25, then another third, put that in
Pay another-
26. So it would be slightly less than 40,000 they would have basically in each of those years. But they would have some funding they could use for the computers and just for the counting of the commuter lots in 25 and 26. Which they need just given the recent change in the VDOT, sorry, not the VDOT, the DRP policy with the grants.
yeah, I don't have any issue with pulling it forward. Yeah, no, Paul, I agree with your rationale, I don't have any issue, I was just wondering, just clarifying that you were saying put in an additional 40,000 in 2025.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
we just have to find a place to take the money from. 25 makes sense. 26, we'd have to find a place to take the money from and swap it.
Okay, you're good, Mr. Chair. Come on, to with whatever you're gonna do.
But just, is everyone supportive of either what Paul said or what John has on the screen here?
Oh, wait, those are two different things.
Different things. So I'm getting there. Is everyone generally supportive of what's being discussed?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
I am.
Anyone, so
as long as it jives with the methodology as.
Yeah. GW Ride Connect's okay with it?
I think my only concern is, so in our strategic plan, we assume that the 119 would happen in FY27. So we've kind of budgeted for some larger purchases in that year, including like road signage. So I think we can be flexible and make it work regardless, but we wouldn't be spending $40,000 just on parking lots and computers. I just want to be clear about that, that if we move it to other years, you know, that does give us flexibility to continue providing some services that DRPT won't fund, and diversifying our funding is a goal of our strategic plan as well. I just don't want there to be an expectation that that money is now being used for something that doesn't jive with what we've put in our financial.
So maybe a better method would be how much money do you guys need in FY 25 and FY 26 for computers? And for park and ride lots, and we move just that amount. I'm assuming it's, less than 10,000 maybe, or, yeah. We don't need to move the whole 40,000.
Program 30,000 in from the balance entry, because I can't touch it in
Yeah.
FY 26 yet, because that would be a.
So Paul, would you be happy for a smaller amount in FY 25 and 26 and the bulk still remaining in FY 27?
Yeah, that's fine. It's whatever kind of GW Ride Connect needs.
So like
Thank you.
10,000,
Something like that, yeah.
something like 10,000 a year, and then the rest will leave in 27. It's no changing of the dollar values. It's just.
John, we can pull that from FY 25 balance entry and just spread it out.
Mhm.
Okay, so I think the proposal on the table is to take that maybe 15 or 30,000 that John has proposed from the balance entry and just spread it out over the 2-year period. And then that fits within the current methodology.
Yes.
All right, with that, John, I know we've already talked quite a bit about some of the scenarios, but if you want to just briefly discuss the presentation and then we can jump into the scenarios.
Okay, just real quick, because there was some confusion when we were sent out. So this is the funding per project by source. So if you break out the percentage totals, this is what is available per project. This column down here was the one I was trying to choose. This is the category totals by mode. So if you multiply these by 2, it should add up with some rounding shifts. So we went ahead and distributed the set aside and balance entry funds. In this case, we are having the 30,000 and 4,622 for the set asides, as well as allocations in 2030 based on methodology. We did have a correction that there was a late error that kind of crept into FY 29. We overprogrammed the Route 1 and South Point projects. We let Spotsylvania County know, and the solution that is that we had to deprogram that in FY 29, but they can request additional funds kind of automatically if it's under that 10%. And so we actually pulled down our balance entry for FY 25 because we got to spend it somewhere, as well as a small amount in FY 27 to make them whole again, so it won't disrupt any efforts moving forward. So that correction was taken into account without touching the FY 30 dollars. And then finally, here's the kind of the reserve set aside kind of balance entry years. As you can see, it's 125,000, and slowly in FY 28, 29, 30, it's slowly building after that, based on a 5% of the total for each grouping. And carbon reduction does not have that set aside taken out. So you can see the distributions based on percentage on times to CMAQ and carbon reduction follow the same methodology where road waste gets about 65%, and then transit 15 and active projects get 20%. That's the amount of funding available per project. STBG's funding starts looking good, so each available project can receive funds. If you double it, that gets the total project scoring. In your pack or in the links that were sent out in the large spreadsheets, option A is just kind of the raw allocations. We apply it to the top 2 based on the percentages, and then we kind of paused because we had other discussions going on. And then options B and C, kind of what to do with the what we call leftover funds, and I'll get there in a minute. So existing projects with new funding, FY 30, you can see the projects, a lot of STBG projects were actually previous ones with Route 1 South Point. We are noting that, as you can see, the corrections are happening with the 104. And it's also being deprogrammed in FY 29. So we're just making that whole again. Replacement vehicles for Fredericksburg are FXBG Go, Harrison Road Interchange, Harrison Road widening. Note that it did not use all the study funds for this group, so there's actually a little bit of STBG left over, and then the I-95 widening project as well. New projects added, we have the TMA set aside in Mine Road in Green Springs, Route 28 Levels Road, being programmed in Spotsylvania Transfer Center to Kalahari. Again, that one's actually technically just under the maximum allocations, about $2,000 there, and then the BCR Trail projects as well. So that is the allocations. So options B and C. So when we programmed everything for the top 2 projects in CMAQ, there's about $422,000 left over before dipping down. That is the results of projects actually not requiring the full amount. There's no additional carbon fundings, and there's about $33,000 left over for STBG. Option one is the methodology preferred. So if we continue on with the methodology, we would actually go ahead and allocate to a third roadway project. We would apply STBG to the fund balance. There's no real project that can adequately use the $33,000, and actually the scoring would say it would be split between two other projects for $15,000. So that's just saying it gets applied into the fund balance because the methodology allows it. And just make sure everyone's aware, if you want to finish first in the next round, finish third in this round. Because it's usually a smaller amount of money, usually get to have a 10-point bump on applications for the next round. So be aware of that. And then option three is kind of developing the smart scale development needs, kind of discussed earlier. We do have a mechanism to swap CMAQ for STBG, but about $455,000 into STBG FY30 funding, and then we can move on from there. So for option B, we're taking the remainder of CMAQ funds and applying it to the third place scoring methodology. So in this case, it'll be US Route 1, Massachusetts Church to River Run Parkway. That would receive $422,000 in funding. And then for option C, we do the swap. There is a path forward if we want to make the FY30 money come to FY25. The trick is, I think it's FY27. I have to find a donor. FY28 and 27 need to find a donor project that also spans forward enough. You have to find two projects that basically overlap, and I have to draw the line. So there are a few options. The easiest and biggest one is delay Onville Road. There's some challenges to that, but I can basically also then swap Onville and trade in the new TMA set aside, so I can then reestablish Onville on its normal schedule, but it'll delay the Mine Road. And then there are potentially other avenues that we could do to try to snake the funds. So it is possible, but we're basically be looking for donor projects that would be delayed as a result. So, and then if we do move along with this, we'll have to develop something that would distribute the STBG's funds on a competitive basis as per the methodology states.
And John, I'll just add off this slide that Enon Road and option, you can swap with Garrison Road, and that is what I sent you a couple weeks ago. That does work out.
So yeah, that's where we've done. We've completed basically most of the items. We just need to be able to put a preferred scenario and option out for public comment. If there's any other updates, we can do, but we basically want to have something that says, because there were a couple of proposals done on the table earlier this morning that says, hey, should we find funding? We made those scenarios that says at least it is possible to move those forward. So just need to know if you want to do option B, C, or something even slightly different. So that.
Thanks, John. Just two comments from me. First of all, we have on purpose this year not gone and allocated anything that we haven't discussed with you beforehand. We haven't even put proposals on the table that we haven't discussed with you, because we really don't want to get into us fighting for particular projects or particular studies or particular proposals. So we're bringing it to you now, having just allocated the first amount of money as per the methodology. We've kept strictly to the percentages in the methodology. We've done nothing unusual, right? And because people were asking for different things like, how can we support smart scale studies? The GW Ride Connect money coming earlier, the various other things. We brought you scenarios so that you can have an input into what we do at the end of this. What I need from you today is a rough idea so that we can put a rough draft to the policy committee to put out for public comment. We then bring it back to the next TAC meeting, and you can then make your final recommendation to the policy committee. So we're looking today for a draft that is basically your rough approach. We'll fiddle, like John has just mentioned, we'll fiddle those numbers on the GWI Connect money, massage that around before we get to the policy committee. But we wanted to hear you out on the approach before we finalize this list. So that's why we're giving you options instead of just allocating it. The one that makes me sad, and Paul, don't shoot me when I say this, and I'm just going to say it, and you can, throw it out completely, but just go back a few slides to those roadway projects. This is the only step that makes me a little bit sad. And the project that has scored higher by a small amount is the Spotsylvania project, right? So if we just follow the methodology, that's where that 400,000 or whatever that number is going to go, right? If we follow the methodology religiously, that's the thing that we have to do because that's what the methodology tells us to do. However, if you leave out the benefit calculation, then actually the Stafford project gets a higher score. And the cost benefit calculation is unfortunately affected by how much you apply for. And as you know, how long is a piece of string? You can apply for any amount of money you want, right? So it becomes a game where the localities have to try and guess how much money we're going to get given by VDOT. And it's a bit of an unfortunate game, right? And there's nothing we can do about it because the methodology tells us to do it like this. So we've done it like this. So in strictly speaking, if you follow the methodology, the Spotsylvania project gets the third amount of money and then we're done. And if you want me to do that, we'll do it right now. We'll submit it to the policy committee and put it out for public comment. But that Stafford project scored almost as high. And if you take away the application dollar amount that was applied for, then actually the Stafford project wins. But that's not what the methodology tells us to do. The methodology tells us to just apply it, and we've applied it. So we're following the methodology.
Can I just make a comment since I don't have a dog in this fight? That's what a methodology is for, right?
Sure.
There's winners and losers, and one score is a little bit higher, and I think to be able to apply those balances to the one that should get it based on the methodology seems to make the most logical sense in this case.
We will do whatever the TAC recommends. We will take it to the policy committee. I just think that the one little thing about our current methodology I don't like is that guessing how much money is going to be available becomes Russian roulette. You don't actually have any objective way to guess how much money is going to be available. And then you have to put in a request for an amount of money, which then affects your cost effectiveness score, right? So if you guess wrong, your cost effectiveness score gets blown out and you lose how many points? 10 points or something?
Well, yeah.
And that's what happened in this case. And I will just do what you tell me, right? I don't have a dog in this fight either. This is the one that makes me sad. And it's a function of the methodology that has this cost effectiveness score that requires you to guess how much money is going to be available in the next round before the amount of money is available.
So the cost effectiveness score is based on how much TAC money you request, or is it based on the total project cost?
Okay, so it's based on the requested amount. So if you have a $10 million project, but you only request $1 million for PE, you're judged on the $1 million. If you come in and request the full 10 million, it's this, and it's compared against all other projects. So if you have one applicant who asks for the whole project costs, then it's going to basically undercut every single project they submitted. Versus another applicant who said, well, we think only $900,000 available. Let's just ask for that because you're almost trying to guess what it is, but you're compared to other projects. So if you have a project that comes in and only asks for $600,000, it's a lot better. Levels Road is actually the prime example because they asked for less than what we can allocate. And so that jumps up and it's all based on competitive within the group. So if everybody asks for 9 million, then everybody's kind of lumped together. If one of them asks for 9 million, I don't want to call it death knell, but as you can see, it lops 6 points off. And a lot of these projects are within a few points of each other.
That Stafford project failed because it lost the cost effectiveness points because the request was very high and the amount available was very low. That's just a fact. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm not saying, I'm just saying that that's why that happened. If you look at all the other metrics, it scored 53 and the Spotsylvania one only scored 42. So as a project, it's quite a good project until you get to cost effectiveness and then it all falls apart.
Yeah. And I'll point out with that project is we're applying it for smart scale. I think the cost is between 30 and $40 million now. So it's, yeah. A significant cost.
But I mean, I realize this is two jurisdictions competing for the pot, and so I must stay out of it, right?
I think to Nick's point, like, we have to establish a methodology. There will always be things that are close, but that's the reason we have the objective process. And if we decide that the cost effectiveness measure needs to be relooked at, we can relook at that, but I think it is what it is.
So there you have it. So it's all up to you to decide. And we will then put the, whichever versions you want, we'll put it together, we'll submit it to the policy committee, we'll put it out for public comment, and then next month, you'll make your final recommendation once we have final numbers on everything. Also, there's one other thing, I just have to say to Susan, and actually, did you get an answer from Susan on the, there was a difference in previous years between the amount you were told and the amount we were told?
Yeah, that's what we're still looking for.
You haven't resolved it yet?
Not yet.
So,
I think the number that you supposed to use.
yes, but you don't recall John's email back to you, which says
Well, and
that
I want to put yours in on that. It's when last year when we talked about things, you said if I need you need an answer from me, I need to call you. I did not see it in the email.
okay, that's
So
fine.
why did you call me?
Okay,
But these are the numbers that
I will
sent
call
to you that you should have used.
we have used the numbers you sent us. Our query is that they don't add up to the numbers last year, so we'll resolve the query with you.
Well, these are your new numbers.
Second,
Just like the locality, they get the same thing this year. Paul got the same thing, but his numbers weren't as happy as yours. That it happens. But
we
they're
have,
the numbers I want you to use.
we have used the numbers you gave us, we've not deviated from them. We just thought it's very odd that it's not just the FY30 numbers that changed, but other numbers changed
They
as
always
well.
change.
Our
Okay,
secondary 6-year plan is down by
All right.
$3,000.
All the numbers each year change.
all right.
They never stay the same.
We will accept what you just said. It's weird, but we'll accept it.
It's a part of the
second,
purpose of the balance.
The second thing is what we do need to ask you for, and we'll do this during the public comment period, but any projects that are being closed out, where there's money that is a leftover or remainder, we haven't this year done that exercise yet, so we just need to verify if there's anything left over from another project. But we'll get with you
Well,
and
we just need to make sure that previous and year one and year two was programmed.
yes, but
Because I have to have those programs if y'all do not plan on
we will.
doing next year.
We will
doing
do
that
it, we'll
process.
just have to get with you on, is there any left over? Because we can't program it if we don't know how much is left over.
And just because I was using it to illustrate other points, so the spreadsheet that we send out to public highlight, FY24 will kind of fall off, will be moved into previous years. So whatever we move forward will be FY25 through FY30, but because we're having a little bit of action happening in 24, I kept it on the spreadsheet y'all see today. I should have made that note earlier.
All right, so Chair, if you could give us the version of the spreadsheet you want us to put out for the public comment, we will then take that. We've noted, we will make the change to the GW Ride Connect money as agreed. We are grateful if you can recommend that $4,000 from the balanced entry for the
So I think
5303 funding.
everyone's happy with, I think, the 5303 funding swap and the GRAC and balance entry.
Thank
I think
you.
we're good on those items. John will make that change. So I'll just, in the room and online, what are the thoughts on option B versus option C?
Option C is in the city's best interest, so.
I will second what Jamie said.
Option
with
C
staff
funds
perspective.
smart scale rather than the third project in CMAC.
Yeah. And-
Option B funds the third project in CMAC, but it doesn't provide extra study money for smart scale.
So
So
what
just
I'll,
understand that.
what I'll say with option C is that I'll work with John, and I think we have a way to swap some money around in a couple projects to bring it forward. But we'll confirm that we can do that and make that change if the TAC would be supportive of that option.
And Mr. Chair, is that just for this round or is this moving forward?
So
Perpetuity?
that would only be for this round because that's what's currently available. The TAC would need to discuss prior to the next cycle of applications and allocations, a methodology change if we wanted to make a permanent amount of funding available. Right now, this is just air quote, extra funding, kind of.
Yeah, Paul, I'll let you chime in, because, yeah.
And we'd have to discuss this fall on what we want to do with that money and how we want to allocate it, what projects and all that. So that would be a discussion for this fall, maybe starting in August, whatever the next TAC chair would like to do.
Okay, so I'll make a couple comments here. The first one is minor. So on that available carbon, the $2 deficit, isn't it possible to rectify that just with CMAQ to do a small swap to make that go away?
It's just a rounding error. I have it programmed out to the cents. I've just tried to drop off the cents from the spreadsheet or drop off the cents from some of the presentations so that I wasn't cluttering, but yeah, you have a $2 little rounding error happening.
We'll just put the $2 somewhere and make.
We have it.
I would hope so.
Okay, so going back just to this option C, that's kind of what we discussed before we went into this, about kind of trying to take a bunch of money out of this process to put to Smart Scale Round 7 or some other type of study effort. And that's what happened last time, which basically we had a lot of concerns with that. That's outside the methodology, so we do not support that for this round. I'll say basically, if there is a desire to increase the amount of funding for studies in the future, we're open to having that discussion and having it soon. I mean, like this coming fiscal year, just updating the STBG methodology to basically change that percentage so that's more than 10%, and we can talk about, what years maybe the funding should be in. But that right now is basically outside of the current methodology. So it doesn't seem right that we basically are trying to kind of draw a whole bunch of STBG money forward to try to basically put towards some new study priorities, which were not submitted for this round or just are kind of coming out of the blue. That's what happened before with the river crossing study. And so we had a lot of concerns with that, and we don't want to see a repeat of that. So I said that we would be strongly opposed to option C because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm not saying I disagree with you, Paul, at all, but I just have to say what's in the city's best interest. So I totally agree with your point, and I think we should follow the methodology, but I've got to report to our city council members. So if there is a way just to let our,
Yeah.
if there is a way to report, if there's a way to provide the information on both scenarios, I know that's not what y'all want to do. Then that would be my recommendation, or the committee can vote, because we do have other committee members who are not vested in this piece, then we can vote. So I'm not speaking on regionalism here, I'm speaking on, I want to keep my job.
So just to clarify, option B follows the methodology and option C does not.
So option B follows the methodology to the letter. Option C, there is a mechanism that allows for this to happen, but it is generally considered
Manual.
to be. Yeah, I am bending the methodology to its limit to make that happen.
There's the thing that says that by November, if the TAC feels that there's an unusual item for the next year, you must name that item, and then staff will attempt, when the allocations come out, to find a way to fund that unusual item. So
the unusual
this
item,
decision should have been made in November, but the discussion started, but no decision was made. So we did not allocate any money to anything, but there is a line that says you can do that, but you have to agree on that so that staff can find money. We don't just introduce things any other time, any other place, and all that sort of jazz.
so the item is a general smart scale, a line item for development of projects for the next round of smart scale. Is that what?
I think,
It's any project, it's not smart scale specific.
yeah,
Oh,
I think the original thought was, maybe it's possibly smart scale specific, but in further discussions, I think if the TAC would be amenable to
So
it.
with the methodology, it actually says you have to identify kind of a specific need.
Yeah.
That's kind of where this.
Grant application project development is a specific need.
Yeah,
but I would be a little concerned because that's still vague enough. It's not like study an intersection in this jurisdiction for this particular purpose, and it's gonna cost $200,000. It's like you know, basically a general planning services contract, you know, that you would keep open for any kind of application.
So that's the reason why we tried to use as specific language to this, because it's also FTDG, so it has to be a competitive process. So there isn't like, it would have to be another round of project selection for that funding.
I mean, I think that's part of the issue that we're dealing with and why smart scale, where is everything comes to the last minute, is because it's difficult to decide on exactly what you're gonna do 2 years out.
But I think even with this smart scale with the rule changes and everything, if we picked.
It wouldn't have changed my decision on what projects, and so I'll just say that.
Pepper staff is staying out of this. We don't have a vote and it doesn't benefit or harm us. We really can't tell jurisdictions and TAC members what to do. So we're staying out of this completely.
I mean, I'd love to be able to look back a year later and say, wow, the methodology we spent a year and a half working on and perfecting actually worked. And we were able to get through a round of CMAQ and STBG allocations. And then we move forward into the next 2-year round with some maybe minor tweaks as necessary, but kind of sticking with option B to me seems like the most logical path forward. But
I've been trying to get that to happen for 4 years now and I've not succeeded.
I
Now
just,
you know why they change smart scale every year.
I was gonna say, we complained when the CTV is coming out with new rules within the final hour, so.
The methodology did kind of allow for this, like, these are both methodologically acceptable, but there's one that is much more in line with the intent, and the other one is we're trying to make it work because things have since changed since we adopted methodology, so.
And it's for this very reason, this meeting today, this is the very reason that John put in the methodology that clause that says decide in November.
Yeah, by the close of the project.
Because then you don't impact people's projects and all that later on because you set it aside from day one. That's the problem with trying to do it now, is that now there's possibly projects that could be funded. And we really need to have this discussion every November, it's just, anyway.
Well, because if you have a discussion in November, then you're having a discussion of theoretically moving money from a roadway project to a study. Now we're talking about moving money from a specific project, right? So.
That's why we as staff do not like doing this. But the methodology allows kind of this thing to happen.
However, it's supposed to be done in November.
That's what makes our job easy, is if you do it in November, we don't have to compromise projects because we just set it aside right up front.
and it was not just because we didn't understand the scope to which, what VDOT was gonna pull back on support for smart scale, or what was
I think it was the amount of work required for this round of smart scale.
okay,
It's been a significant amount of more work than originally anticipated, I think, on all of our parts.
okay.
So this is Paul. I just want to make a couple other comments about smart scale, and I think we should kind of talk about this maybe more like in a future meeting. I'll say basically, actually, with this round of smart scale, VDOT did more for our locality than they had in the previous round. The previous round, they basically gave us no support for any of our projects outside of something that was in a pipeline study. But basically,
Paul, I don't.
in this round,
Paul, I don't think that's true.
Stop. Let me finish. Okay, but in this round, they actually provided 3 projects per locality, which I thought was tremendous. Now I guess there's a question of are they going to do that going forward? But if they are, they would continue to basically give most of the locality supports. And then with these pipeline and STAR studies, you can get basically probably another application to round out your 4. So I guess in terms of just like state resources to support smart scale application, it seems like there is potentially the resources are already there. And basically if a locality wants to do something that's not a VTrans kind of high priority need, there is the option that a locality can do its own study and kind of try to develop a smart scale project that way.
Paul, I'll just say from Stafford's point of view, we had the same amount of support, if not a little bit less, that we had as last round of smart scale.
And again, my point was just that was not our experience. We actually had more.
Well, I think that in terms of the TAC bylaws, if we can't get an agreement through general discussion, you eventually have to take a vote, and the votes have to be, the bylaws are specific. It says we have to in fact tell the policy committee that we didn't get general agreement and that there were votes taken and that the vote was 60-40 or something. That's what, so unless you all can come to an agreement now through give and take discussion, we then have to go to a vote because I have to report something to the policy committee, whatever that something is.
So I just had a question on option C. Who proposed option C, staff? Or was it one of the TAC members?
Staff proposed the methodology for option C. At a prior TAC meeting, I proposed the option for looking into potential development needs for projects.
So the item in the methodology was put there by staff of FAMPO. This particular proposal was put together by Stafford County, not by staff of FAMPO.
The particular proposal for what we would do, not the particular proposal for the financials, that was proposed by
So,
staff.
yeah, option C was proposed by Stafford County.
The
The concept.
The concept, yes, not the financials for it.
How it was, Stafford County provided the proposal to do it, Danpo staff said, okay, this is how the path forward based on the methodology could enable it to work. That's what option C is, so.
Right, I think Jamie, you had a question?
I just want to clarify that for option C, it's not just smart scale projects.
That would be, at least on Stafford's side, that would be our intention, yes.
So this would be $422,000 in which fiscal year?
It's in FY30
Right
right
now.
now. That's what it is right now. If
And-
we wanted it for the next round of smart scale, we'd have to shuffle money.
And it's okay, so that's what you were describing as that shuffling around of the two projects, you swapping the
And-
4-year project and.
To move money up means other projects have to move back.
Yeah, so I guess that's really the more important question we should be talking about here, you guys, is that good, are you guys good with that?
I've already given John a proposal that we could do that based on 2 Stafford projects that would not delay their project timelines. Yes.
Ian and John, I still don't think this is what we agreed to when we went through this methodology. You know, we didn't have any options in there. We came up with the agreement on what we decided to go with. And I think, you know, I've heard several of you all say that we're following option B is following the methodology. Again, any changes from that in the future, we can discuss it. But I agree, we went through all of that exercise and work, and we had concerns, but we came to that decision on the methodology that was approved. I think we should follow that.
Only I think you're gonna have to do a roll call vote soon, so maybe you just want to get those lists ready because it doesn't sound like we're gonna get some agreement.
We still have a quorum for a roll call vote, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and yes, we have 2 and a third
So-
jurisdiction, so you do still have a.
Let me
quorum.
propose to go around the room among those who are voting members and which option they would prefer. And then, or unless someone has a motion for a specific option.
Wait, are we taking the vote or we just,
All right, we do have to take a vote, actually, yeah, that's good.
yeah,
All right, well, I'll motion to move forward with option C. On resolution 2430, moving forward with funding scenario option C.
And can I just say that if option C fails, we automatically do option B, so we don't have to vote again?
vote again, yeah,
We would have to vote again. All
All right.
yeah, because it has to be in the affirmative, right?
So
Yeah.
you've got the latest update.
right,
Roll
so I
call.
made a motion for option C. Do I have a second?
Second.
Or-
No, that's fine.
You-
No, you're on record, great.
And I just want to double check the alternates here. So I have Rodney White is an alternate, but Paul is here for Pennsylvania. Okay, Rodney's good to go, and then Mohammed Ben Omar also, but I only need 2.
You'll need can do two.
So only 2.
So
per
actually,
jurisdiction,
one comment on that, the localities actually only have 1 vote.
Let's pull up the
You can check the
bylaws.
bylaws, but the localities have 2 reps. but they only have one vote apiece.
Okay, just, I'm confusing the policy committee and the TAC. Thank you, Paul.
Just pull up the TAC bylaws, so we just don't have.
Yeah, Becky's got them.
Thank you.
Oh, Becky's.
Okay, so, yes, you have 2 representatives each,
This is what you need in your organization.
Great job, Becky.
On the section 5, conduct of meetings, one vote per locality.
Great, so I don't need any alternates then.
1 vote per locality, agency, and organization, that's correct. So Paul's right, 1 vote per locality or organization or state partner.
So we should do a roll call based on the locality or organization versus the individual.
Yes, so call the locality, don't call the individual.
Okay, Stafford County,
Aye.
Spotsylvania County,
Nay.
Fredericksburg City,
Aye.
VDOT,
Aye.
nobody's here for Fredericksburg Go. DRPT, Amy,
Aye.
UW Ride Connect,
Nay.
BRE,
Nay.
Caroline County.
They're not.
Oh, okay. Well, it says
We
that
have Omni, right?
FTA. DRTC,
Aye.
the ayes have it.
How many votes?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ayes and 3 nays.
We'll report that to the policy committee. Again, it's not our decision, it's the policy committee's decision. Bearing in mind, if we do have to, if the policy committee votes to take option C as you all have, we then have to have a process by which we allocate that money. So all we can do right now with it for the public comment is to put it in
A set aside.
a set aside, and it would then have to be discussed further because we have to discuss which studies and projects to fund. If the policy committee does not agree with you all and votes for option B, then of course we would have to put that money to the next available project on the list.
All right, we'll move on to item number 8, correspondence.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this was the response to Supervisor Minucci's inquiry with regard to the work, going back to work to DC and so forth. Great response from our partner at the NWCOG. That's the only correspondence in your packet, sir.
All right, thank you. On to staff reports. We already talked about Safe Streets for All. We'll jump over to the Fampo River Crossing Parkway study.
Yep, so I can go ahead. So we had our public meeting last March 20th. And we had about 71 participants, leaving 55 written comments at that point in time. So it was fairly successful on that front. We also have our online survey that is actually currently live. I think at the last time the consultants provided us an update, we had over 70 comments on that, 122 pin drops. And so we're continuing to take in information. A few of y'all have heard of this because we had our stakeholder meeting last week. And we kind of went over a lot of the technical folks were able to provide options for the 4 alignments that have since been proposed. So we now have 4 alignments out and are receiving public comment. That has continued to have discussions on other alignment kind of options availabilities. We're contracted that we can have up to 7. We have 4 currently, so we can make tweaks and modifications, but we're not saying anything until we receive all the public comments because Michael Baker is taking some of those comments into considerations and we're developing those alternatives as a result. So really just a big shout out for VDOT for hosting us. So it was brilliant, ready, set up, good to go, like it couldn't have gone smoother, so big shout out to that one.
Sure.
Yep.
We were putting the survey out, you know what day it closes?
It was 30 days after, it could be April 20th or April 19th.
So put that in.
It's 30 days from the day of the public meeting.
Do we stay?
No, I didn't.
So if we can just, Carly, let's just add the date when after the meeting,
Sure.
onto the thing.
I'm
But
not
it's,
sure for this.
Well, we're gonna get it up on the website and send it out.
it's exactly 30 days from the date of the public meeting.
All right, with that, we'll move on to member reports. Does anybody have any items under member reports they would like to discuss, go over, make comments, question?
I do, if you don't mind. Just wanted to let everyone know that we had a good reception at our March Operations Board meeting on our draft System Plan 2050 update. This Thursday, we're going to be going to NVTC Mission Board to present. We're not asking them to take action on that. We'll be down at OmniRide for the PRTC board next month. And then our goal is to have our board adopt our plan in June. So that'll be the third week of June. So we're going to kind of start a roadshow. If any jurisdiction or entity is interested in getting the kind of full scoop on the system plan and what we're talking about for 2030 and 2050, happy to do that. Send me an email.
And just to clarify, Nick was just sharing informally at the start of the meeting that this includes their plan for Saturday trains, weekend trains, up and down the routes, both branches. So just be aware that this will include Saturday train. And the second thing I was hearing, Nick, you were saying that there is in the future an increase in costs, so it's going to require increased funding over time, right?
Yeah. The plan doesn't identify sources of funding. We're leaving that to the regional bodies like MVTC and PRTC. There's a General Assembly study that made its way through this past session that will convene a regional body to look at a sustainable funding mechanism for all the Northern Virginia transit operators. That's a 2-year process. And so like I said, that every year we're going to have to kind of provide minor updates to this plan. So in that second year, once that process has happened and the funding is, the source is determined, we would update the study and maybe update our service assumptions based on what we know we'll have available to us in the next 5 or 6 years.
Thanks, Nick.
All right, any further items on member reports? All right, with that, meeting adjourned.